Welcome to another exhilarating episode of Comic Book Straight Talk, brought to you from the secret basement inside one of America's oldest comic shops, Tulsa's own The Comic Empire. Now, true believers, open up your ear holes and get ready to have your head filled with the best comic book knowledge this galaxy can handle. That's right, it's time for another nerd overload with Comic Book Straight Talk.
Welcome back to Comic Book Straight Talk. This is Terry.
Dalian.
And our special guest, Jimmy Tramble.
Jimmy.
He is going
Thank
to be
you for
asking,
having me.
Yes, we appreciate you coming.
Yep.
Carrie and, not Carrie, Kenny and Carrington couldn't make it today. Kenny's helping Wonder Woman. Not Wonder Woman, Catwoman. I'm all messed up today.
Or Wonder Woman got a dress. Yeah,
for the wedding. No, actually, Kenny and Carrington, they've got a lot to do. They're gearing up for the 4th of July holiday, their favorite holiday. And so I think they're out fireworks shopping. Yep. And today we have Mike from Comic Empire here again, Mike McCormick. And we're going to talk about Comic Empire, the history of Comic Empire, the history of Mike with Comic Empire. And we brought Jimmy in to ask those hard-hitting questions that you've always wanted to be asked, but they never have been. And we'll get those answered for you today.
Now, we mentioned on the Underground show we did that you and your friends would ride up to, get the Undergrounds and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But where did you go to get your normal comics? Not the head shop comics, but
at spinner racks at Quickie Marts and drugstores, and heck, even gas stations had them in those days. Grocery stores mostly.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I can say moms are going to go to grocery stores every week, so.
Do you remember what the first book you bought was?
I do not, but the first book I ever read, cover to cover, was Spectre number 5. But it was a buddy's. I was over at his house and I saw it and read it. That's really my first introduction to comics, period.
Let's show your age and what was the cover price on those spinner?
That would have been a 12 center?
Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was a 12 center. So yeah.
And you were a customer at Comic Empire.
I was listening to the radio one day, driving down the street, and I heard an ad. It was either, the local station, KKC or KLI, I don't remember which one. And a new comic book store in town. I couldn't believe it. I actually did a U-turn on Peoria and to head back to I-44 so I could get over here. And so I came straight here. And so when I came in the store and met Larry Scott, who was the original owner of the store, so I asked him how long he'd been open. He said just yesterday. He opened yesterday. I was like, oh, okay. So I was here the second day he opened, and
this was
here ever since. This would have been June of 1976. We're not exactly sure of the day. He could never remember, and I couldn't either. June 13th, June 15th, June 17th, somewhere in there, but middle of June. And I was here ever since, really. Although, when I went to Stillwater, I went to OSU, he would hold my books for me, which is why I don't mind holding books for people,
right?
Especially for months if they're at school or whatever, because he did it for me, so I always appreciated it.
What was the atmosphere of Comic Empire back then when Larry was running it?
It was pretty good because there was a lot more. It was a lot younger crowd. Most comic collectors today are 30. Well, we were all 16 and 14 and 12 and 18 maybe. And usually by the time you'd get out of high school or go to college, you'd give up comics. And unless you were hardcore geeks like some of us were. But so it was young. He actually had video games in here. He would do gaming. He would stay open really late. He kept weird hours anyway. It wasn't actually economically viable to run stores in those days yet. You were still on the newsstand a delivery system, so you only got to keep a fraction of the cover price. But you could return unsold books. So your discount wasn't as good, but you could return whatever didn't sell. And so it was hard to make the rent in here. So Larry did a lot of other things. He did groceries, I think, for a while. He delivered pizzas. He did whatever he could to keep the store open.
Rumor was Larry slept in the back a lot?
He did violate the lease a little. I don't think I can get him in trouble now, but yeah, he violated the lease quite often by actually living here. I shudder to think how he actually washed his clothes and bathed. There is a creek behind the store. I picture him cheeking it down there naked at about midnight, down there banging his clothes on a rock down in the creek down there. And so I never actually got into that delicate question with him. I'm not sure I want to know the answer. But later, as the store got a little more profitable, he had an apartment right over here in the area, and he would come back and forth. And so yeah, it was. Larry was just trying to lure anybody in, and so he would get a lot of kids on bicycles after the school closed over here, which you don't see anymore. Those days are done, and so he would have a lot of kids, and of course, kids were always wanting to earn enough money to buy comics, so he would put them to work. You know, he made them do most of the work, dig books out or file books or whatever, so he didn't have to do it, and of course, the video games would keep him in here. And Larry got into early gaming, which was coming on the scene there in the late 70s and early 80s period, which I know nothing about. So eventually, when I bought the store from him, I got rid of the gaming because I know nothing about gaming. So
now you went to Stillwater.
I did.
And then you moved to El Paso.
I
for
did.
a while.
I got a job in the real world, the three-piece suit world. For all you college graduates out there, you should go for that if you're into that. But I'm not a three-piece suit guy, so it didn't work so well for me. I'm not a climb the corporate ladder guy. Smile to the guy ahead of you while you're stabbing the guy below you in the back. I can't do that sort of thing. So I had to get out of the real world, and so when the store came up for sale, I was single at the time, and I jumped at the chance to buy the store. So
What made you want to buy the store?
Well, I didn't really. It sort of fell in my lap. Larry, I'd come back from Texas where I was working for Thanksgiving, and Larry told me at the end of the year he was shutting the store down. Well, that was like 5 weeks from now. So I asked him what he was wanting for the store. It wasn't a whole lot. I was like, wow, he's really wanting to get rid of this store. He tried a lot of other people. He'd been trying to sell it for almost a year anyway, which I hadn't heard. And as the months go by, the asking price got lower until when I asked, it was nothing. And I thought, well, shoot, I've got that in savings account. I could just buy the store right now. And I thought, I don't like what I'm doing, and I'm single. I have no attachments. I never really thought about running a store. I always liked comics, and it was a little scary. I had a knot in my stomach, thinking, well, I'll buy the store, and 6 months later I'll be out of business anyway. And if I am, I'll go back to doing right what I was doing. My job was in demand, so I could have picked it up pretty quick and got another job. But it always worked out. It's just I bought the store, and I've never looked back. So
you think you? I know you loved comics, but
yeah.
Was it more of the love of comics that spurred you on to go ahead and try to buy the store, or was it just everything just coincidental?
No, the real thing was I'd been in a lot of comic stores all over Texas, all over Oklahoma, Arizona, and this little shop always had something about it. Larry kept the store stocked really well with comics. Larry liked comics too, and he had comics of all sorts. One of the things I always liked, being an underground guy, he carried undergrounders too, which most stores don't do even today. But and I just, what I hated was to see this little store go away, because it was one of the best stores I'd ever been in. Larry was knowledgeable about comics. He was friendly, chat you up, and he was always trying to do things where he'd get customers together and go to the movies or do something like that. And so it was a fun store, and I just hated to see it close. So I thought, well, like I say, that's really what spurred me to buy it. So really, I just didn't want to see it close. I really knew nothing about running a business or anything like that. I come at it from the perspective of, like most everybody out there, I'm a collector. I like books. I enjoy reading them. I love the art. Art form is fantastic and underappreciated by far. But so it wasn't like I had this burning desire to run a store all my life or something like that. It sort of just fell in my hands, and I had to make a quick decision. And it's probably a good thing. I didn't have to think about it too long. I just pulled the trigger and did it. And like I say, I've just kind of never looked back. So I really didn't change much. You know, the store, it looks just pretty much like it did back when Larry had it.
I was going to say, I've heard stories about the case being...
Yeah, it was arranged a little
wall.
different.
Right.
This case was on that wall. But as we accumulated more and more comics, we realized that to be more efficient, we need this long wall to put comics on. And so we sort of rearranged it to where it is today. Mainly just not too long, maybe 2 or 3 years after the store opened. It was like that, the other arrangement. But if you've seen pictures of the store, it looks exactly the same as it did probably in 1979 as it does now. So
I thought you just wanted his cat.
no, Larry and his cat. Oh my God, that was a destructive cat.
Cat store.
Yeah. Cats like to stretch their claws, and that cat liked to stretch his claws on all the classic back issues, unfortunately. So the cat had to go. Sorry, Larry.
How about this whole
I love your store, but the cat's got to go. The store cat. Muggsy.
You said you'd been to stores in Texas and other places. Was this the first comic store?
This was the first comic store I'd ever been in. It was the first store in this area. There was an earlier store in Oklahoma City, and I'm pretty sure that's where Larry got the idea. He probably went to Bart Bush's Atomic Pop in Oklahoma City, and it opened, I believe, in '74. But Bart had a way of staying open for a few years, then he'd close it for a year or two, and then he'd open it again for another 4 or 5, 6 year run, and then he'd close it again, and finally the original Atomic Pop is closed. Bart finally retired a few years ago. There is still an Atomic Pop in Oklahoma City, but it's not associated with Bart. I've never been able to quite figure out how. Maybe he sold the rights to the name or something. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I don't think Bart's actually associated with that store.
So when you do that U-turn and you come in here for the first time, you hear the angels singing?
I
What was
did.
that experience?
I was in comic heaven. Yeah, I thought, oh my gosh, every back issue I'd ever dreamed of having, I can find it right here. And for the most part, that was true. I really don't know how long Larry collected, but he obviously, because Larry went to OU, so that's why I'm saying in Norman he probably ran into that store in '74 and got the idea, we need to open a store in Tulsa, which was a good idea. It was a few years ahead of its time because, like I say, Larry struggled to make the store work for a while on the old newsstand system. But by the early '80s, you had direct sales, and most stores can work better on that. The discounts are better.
I was going to say, you bought it pretty much at the end of...
I bought it in 1984.
That transition time?
Yeah.
Or was it more, it was
direct sales had already started
Okay.
by then.
Okay.
Had just really got rolling. And so Larry did all the hard slogging of getting the store going for 8 years. I mean, working, selling pizzas and doing all this stuff because sometimes you come by and he wouldn't be open. Well, he probably was stuck having to deliver pizzas that day or something. That's why he kept weird hours. So you sometimes might come by here at 10 o'clock at night. He'd be open. Or 2 o'clock in the morning one night I came by here. I don't know what I was doing. I'm not sure I should say. But I came by here and it was late. I mean, it was 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I saw the lights on in here. I'm like, oh, that can't be good. Or thought, what's going on? Well, they were all in here gaming. They had a bunch of guys in here and they were gaming. So Larry kept weird hours, and so you never know when you swing by here if he was open or closed. So, but he did all the hard work, get the store basically up and running. And so when the transition came and I bought the store from him, he was more than ready to let go. I think the deal was we just had the big flood in '84, and the water was waist deep in here. Well, we managed to save most of the quality books. We stacked all the goodies up top or up here or wherever, and most of the stuff that got destroyed was, Archie's and Richie Rich's, which, no offense to you, Archie and Richie Rich collectors out there. I know you're in tears now, but so we lost a lot of books that, weren't high value books, let's say, at that time. And that broke his heart. He left. His parents lived in California, and he got out of here. He saw what the flood did to the store, and he left. One of the things Larry did do, which wasn't probably good business, was he trusted a lot of people. I don't know how many keys he gave out to this place. He offered one to me, and I wouldn't take it because I was like, well, if something comes up missing, he's going to blame me for it because I've got a key, right? Well, he didn't matter because he had 20 keys out to this place, which I didn't know at the time. And so several of us got together, and we were like, let's fix the store up for Larry when he comes back, because it just broke his heart. And so we humped everything out of this store. We cleaned, we painted, we got it all back in. So when he did come back from California, he was surprised to see that everything was kind of back in order. But it didn't matter. He was done. He was going to sell the store. I think, like a lot of guys, you turn your hobby into a business. You lose the love of the hobby with the everyday grind of the business. And that's pretty much what happened to him, I think. I tell people today, I'll bet you $1. Once he handed me the keys, and he eventually moved back to California. And when he did, I bet you $1 he never looked at another comic. I bet he never looked at another one. I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't shock me.
So when the transition happened, I guess Larry kind of helped transition.
He did. Larry, for about the first 3 or 4 months, he actually came in still every day and introduced me to all the customers. So in about a 3-month period, I saw just about all the regulars who were going to come in. Many of them I knew already because I'd been here since the second day the store opened. So I knew quite a lot of them already, but there were many I did not know. And so that was a smooth. He really helped with that transition. I've always said if I ever sell the store and somebody ever actually wants to buy it and run it, that I would do that if they wished. I would still come in. I would introduce them to everybody. Try to make it a smooth transition. A local store here, Starbase 21, shut down a few years ago, and most of those old customers came here because we were both the old guys in the area, and they all started asking me the same question. Oh, you're not going to retire anytime soon, are you? I'm like, well, no, I have no plans on it, but I'm over 60, so you never know. I'm not planning on it, but I can't do it forever, and I've never really thought about what I'd do if I'd shut it down or I'd sell it or whatever. But
you still have that love.
Oh yeah, I love it. I don't think of it as the store. In fact, I have a hard time of actually still thinking of this as my store. People ask me all the time about my collections. And I don't have as big a comic collection as people might think. I used to own every book there was. I mean, I had all the Marvels. I had good chunks of the DCs. But over the years of running the store, I sold them to survive and eat and buy a house and, exist in the world. So most of my really good books I sold a long time ago.
But now you have
I have a personal collection of stuff I love that I'm not parting with. Most of it's not valuable. One of my favorite books from the 70s was Master of Kung Fu. Well, they're a little pricier than they used to be, but by and large, Master of Kung Fu is not going to put you through college, okay? It's not going to fund your retirement. But was it a great book? It was awesome. So that my deal isn't about value. Like I say, I'm a collector, but I enjoy the books and the art and the stories. The value of comics don't interest me that much, except purely business, but so I don't collect for value, and I know a lot of collectors do today, and good for them. But you should enjoy what you're buying. If it's just a commodity, why aren't you buying gold or stocks or something?
You kind of touched on something a while ago. Something about when you came in here, you thought it was just like there's something about the store.
Yeah, people.
Is it that it's because you go to a comic shop now? It's all gaming. It's all
techno
stuff.
Most
stores
like a
step back in
do
time.
Lots of stuff to survive. One of my competitors has to do gaming. He's really a comic guy at heart, but he can't make it. He's kind of in a high rent district anyway.
He's not. He's gone. He got rid of it.
Who did?
The one you're talking about.
Jimmy? What?
Yep. He turned it over to his sons.
So he's not working. He's not doing it anymore. Wow.
He is
I had
doing
not heard. When did that happen?
A couple months ago.
Wow.
He's moving. He and his wife moved to Tennessee to open up a Herbalife nutrition store.
Oh, gosh, I knew they were doing that.
Yeah, they've done well. But yes, but yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
But I forgot what we were talking about.
Them having other stores doing gaming.
Oh yeah. Well, most stores are going to survive and do what they have to do. You know, you got to pay the rent, and if you can't do it selling comics, you'll sell T-shirts, and if you can't do it selling T-shirts, you'll sell pop figures. You know, if you can't do that, you'll do gaming or whatever it is it takes to pay the rent. And I'm fortunate I've never had to do that. I actually have people who don't believe you can actually survive strictly doing comics anymore. Another one of my customers used to run a comic review site, and he would do comic reviews, and he just happened to mention, he would never mention the store by name, but he would say my local shop, blah blah blah. He happened to mention one time in one of his articles that his local shop only does comics, and he was shocked, and he got like 50 emails saying nobody can do just comics today. There's no way that you can make it surviving as a store just doing comic books today. And it shocked him because he'd been coming here for decades and then knows that basically all I do is comic books. And so these people, obviously, wherever they're from, their shops are having to sell gaming and do action figures and stuff, and and posters or whatever it takes to survive. And
I remember a time you used to do posters up here.
I did. I don't mind doing posters, but the age of posters is over, guys. Posters are something high school and college kids put up in their dorm room or whatever. But Mama's not going to let you put the She-Hulk poster up the dining room, is she? That ain't going to happen. So,
you had them and you were
and most readers today, the average reader is 30 or a little older. So those guys aren't interested in buying posters. Posters basically have died out. The old order form, you'd look in there and there'd be 40 new posters a month. Well, how many posters you see offered in the catalog today? Maybe 2, or if even that. And so posters are not a big... people still like them, of course, but it's not big business like it used to be because teenagers, well, I don't know what teenagers are into now. Their own phones, I think, is what they're into. But or if teenagers read comics at all, they're probably reading them digitally,
And you've seen a lot of trends up and down through the years.
A lot of gimmicks.
And you've seen, the market do the big crash, and come back. Well,
one thing I did know when I got into this business, I'd been collecting long enough to see a boom and a bust, period, and then talking to people, and Larry, who ran the store, and several of the old guys who were collectors back in the 50s and things. I knew the comic business was a up and down roller coaster ride kind of business. And it still is. It still sort of works that way. So there are boom times and there are bust times. And so I never got too deep. One of the reasons I've always stayed in this little hole is because I already knew. Why go get some huge warehouse and pay all that rent and sign that huge lease and then have a bust period where it breaks me and I have to close?
What has been through the years some of the toughest times, and you get to do anything different to survive?
Personally, for me, the hardest time was right after the death of Superman. There are a lot of collectors who probably think the death of Superman did more harm for comics than most believe the price guide has actually done worse thing for comics than anything. But second on the list is usually the death of Superman. It was played up way over much in the media. That must have been the slowest news week in the history of news because it was on the radio, it was in the newspaper, and it was
you were on TV several times
too. For a week they pumped Death of Superman. I tried to let everybody know that, they're not actually going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, are they? They're not really going to kill Superman. They're going to make it appear that they kill Superman, aren't they? But they're not really going to kill him. I saw it in CNN, I saw it in the news, they're going to kill him. Well, every person on Earth who never read a comic in their life had to have that book. And it was a crazy time. It's the only time in the store I've ever taken the phone off the hook. ever. That day, I took it off the because I already knew what the phone call was about. You know, do you have Death Superman? Come in. If I have one, you can buy it. You're not going to be able to buy it on the phone anyway. So, but right after that period, it did suck a lot of new people into the hobby. But once they realized they were duped, about 6 months later, when they realized they didn't really kill Superman, which I'd been trying to tell everybody for a year, they got disillusioned and quit. And I mean, comics went into a depression at that time from about 94. Death Superman, I believe, was summer of 93.
I think so.
But by 94 to about, well, I mean, it was a horrible period. Marvel filed bankruptcy. I mean, that shows you how good the comic business was. Marvel went bankrupt and sold all their movie rights off, which they're still trying to acquire back. And Marvel also crippled the industry in the 90s as well with their Heroes World when they tried to distribute their own comics, and they shut down most of the big national distributors, except for Diamond, who was able to weasel a few exclusive deals with DC and Dark Horse and Image and Marvel today, I believe, all have exclusive deals with Diamond, which is the reason why nobody's been able to rise up and challenge Diamond, is because they have exclusive contract with Diamond. So nobody can distribute those companies, and that probably represents, what, about 85% of the total market. So
and how is that affecting Comic Empire?
Well, when Marvel did their own distribution, it was a nightmare because, A, they didn't do it really well, and stores had a really hard time even getting a phone call to Marvel. You could not actually phone in reorders because it took you 3 hours to get somebody on the phone to reorder the current Spider-Man, say, if you ran out. Most distributors, you call them, you get a minute or two, maybe on hold, and you can get in and order. And if they have them, you get them. If you don't, they're sold out. But Marvel, I don't have time to sit there 3 hours waiting to try to order something that they may not even have anyway. And even Marvel realized what a mistake it was. Marvel made quite a few bad decisions in those days, and that was right after they went public. Marvel used to be a very reader-friendly and retailer-friendly company. They would always call you, hey, is there anything we can do? I need promo material. Is this selling? Why is this not selling? Marvel hadn't called me in 25 years. Marvel hasn't talked to a retailer in 25 years. And to me, it amazes me. You can tell. The quality of books have gone straight south. And but it's like they don't care. Why would you want to talk to people who sell your product? I mean, what's the advantage in that? So sometimes the decisions some of these publishers make makes me scratch my head. It's all corporate today. I don't think they really care about the readers or the retailers. And in fact, I think they think as soon as we can go under, that means they can go digital that much sooner. And then they don't have to pay us. They don't have to pay a printer. They don't have to pay inks. They don't have to pay distributors. For once, though, in this battle, at least the distributors and the retailers are on the same side. It will both be gone if it ever goes all digital. So, but Marvel made some bad decisions in the 90s. That's why they went public and sold stock. Well, they got a lot of money right away. A lot of people bought their stock, and but they wasted all the money. They went out and tried to do their own distribution. Nightmare. Yeah, horrible. Heroes World. They bought Heroes World distributor. They killed distribution, and they killed their own distribution because Heroes World didn't work. After about 2 years, Marvel realized they were not in the distribution business anymore. And they bought Panini, an Italian sticker company that was going broke already. Stickers and cards also died about that same time. They boomed from about the mid-late 80s to around 93 or 4. And you remember those days, if you were a card collector, there were lots of cards to buy. They flooded the market with them. And by 94 and 95, cards weren't selling. Well, Panini was going out of business, so Marvel decided to take some of their stock money and go buy a dying sticker company. I still have no idea. They might still own it today, but I don't know what that advantage that ever gave Marvel at all that I could ever see. And So there were a lot of bad decisions, and that was the toughest time for retailers. It was really hard. It was hard to get product. It was hard to deal with Marvel. It was hard, and Marvel at that time represented about 55% of the market. So that's what made it hard. And even lately, the last few years, Marvel. I don't know if it's that secret that Marvel books haven't sold real well in the last 4 years or so.
Well, they tried the diversity. They
did, and not that that's wrong.
No,
but the thing was, what I always thought was Marvel always did diversity fairly well, without being preachy.
Right.
The problem is, people buy comics to be entertained. They don't want to be preached at. If they want to be preached at, they can go to church on Sunday.
Or watch it.
Or if you want to be, and writers spouting their own political beliefs in their stories. Well, I don't care what the writer thinks. I'm trying to read an entertaining story about the Moon Knight or Daredevil or Batman. I don't care about the writer's political beliefs. Most good writers know how to sneak it in anyway, in a subtle manner, without
80s,
being preachy or on their soapbox. So that's really why I think that was the biggest problem.
Yeah, because in the 80s you had Roger Stern writing Stern wrote Captain America for a little bit.
Englehart story.
Englehart,
yeah.
And they were political, but they weren't.
But they weren't in your
face stuff, and they had their own
preachy.
agendas.
Yeah, they weren't preachy.
You still got the entertaining story.
Right, and that's the thing. People read comics to get away from reality. If I want to be depressed, I can watch the news. So
through the years, what would you say are some of the most important things you need to run and sustain a comic shop?
Oh, I don't know. People always say, "Oh, you must be a really good businessman because you've been in business for 42 years," and I'm like, I don't know anything about business. I know zero about business. I just like comics, and I can chit-chat with people about comics when they come in. I think the biggest thing is just being friendly to people when they walk in. Ask them, are they looking for? If you want to look, just leave them alone. Don't hassle them. Help them find something if they want something found, and help them with any questions they have.
Don't tell them that their favorite character sucks.
No, don't tell them if they're... In fact, I have several ways to do that. Occasionally people will pick up a book and I was like, oh my God, that's the worst book on the stands. And they're asking me, is this book any good? And I'll say, well, there sure are a lot of people buying it. Or something like that, something real neutral. I never actually say if it's any good or if it's not. I'll just say, well, there's a lot of people buying that, and that way, hey, I told you, I didn't say it was good or bad.
One story about Tanner, the guy that used to work.
I had a kid who worked for me in the '80s, and he had no qualms about telling you if you bought a book that he thought was horrible, he'd let you know about it. What are you buying that piece of crap for? So it's like, wow, there's some serious salesmanship right there. So it shows you I don't know anything about business, or I wouldn't let Tanner work here, bro.
Yeah, so the main thing was
just be friendly and informative and share your knowledge. There are guys who have a lot of knowledge about comics, the history of books, old writers, artists, cool storylines and things like that, but they don't share it with anybody. It's like super secret knowledge. Well, the old days, long before the internet, the only way to find out about old books was to ask somebody who was an old collector. What should I collect? What should I avoid? Who's a good talent artist I should look for? Who's the big name talent that you always want to check their art out or whatever. And they would pass it on to you. And that's what I always do. So people can bring books in here, whether they want to sell them or not, or they just want to know a value, or they don't know anything about them at all, and I get a lot of that. So that you don't have to even bring anything in here that you're wanting to sell. If you're just curious about something, I'll tell you what it is. I'll let you know. And I don't try to deceive anybody. So if somebody comes in and says, I think this is a $100 book, I'll say, well, yeah, that is a $100 book. Or, no, it's not a $100 book because, you've got a tear on the back cover or whatever, and so it's probably about a $20 book or something like that. I'll try to set them straight because they're going to find out the truth sooner or later. And then when they realize that, that guy told me the straight poop. He told me this book was only about $20, and he was right. So I don't try to deceive anybody or rip anybody off, or because like I say, I'm a collector too. When I go to stores and there's a $10 book and I offer $8 on the book, I want the guy to deal with me and say, or at least say, no, but I'll sell it to you for $9 or something. You know, at least wheel and deal in books. People love doing that. And dealers who don't deal, I never could figure out. I don't understand them. But and Larry could be that way. So he was trying to sell a book one day for $10, and the guy offered him $8, and he said, no, it's worth $10. Well, the guy walked out. Did the guy ever come back to this store? Probably not. Why would he? That guy's not going to do any deals with me. And so when he left, I said, Larry, what do you have in that book? 50 cents, a quarter? Yeah. I said, well, why wouldn't you sell it for $8? I said, this store's been here 4 years. You've never sold this book. So you're going to wait another 4 years before somebody comes in and maybe he'll give you $2 extra for it? So, yeah, Larry had a business degree from OU, and I swear that, no offense to OU grads out there, but I can tell you, he knew absolutely less about business than I did, and I don't know anything.
And you went to school for, what was your degree?
I was an engineer at OSU.
Okay.
Yeah, I have an engineering degree.
So everything you've learned about, you know, the bookkeeping side and all that, you learned from Larry?
No, simple entry bookkeeping is, well, it's old as the Venetians. That was their secret weapon for 200 years. Double entry bookkeeping. It's what they ruled the world with. But so no, I do my own bookkeeping. But so no, he didn't teach me much about that. It really, Larry was he was outgoing. He could be friendly with guys, and that's really what I learned from Larry, is how to interact with people and make them feel, because comics are a hobby. People want to feel happy when they come into a comic store. They don't want to feel like they're at the Inquisition.
Right.
And you know, you go into most stores and they hardly even acknowledge you walked in. So I always try to acknowledge that I see you there. If you need any help, let me know. Something I can do for you, whatever, and go from there. And I don't push books on people. I hardly ever recommend books, especially for people I don't know, because there's so many books out there. You recommend a book to somebody and they take it home and read it and they think it stinks, then, well, that guy didn't know anything. I'm never going to listen to him again. So I don't know what you like, so I don't really know what to recommend. So I very rarely recommend a book, except for my really old customers that I've known so well. I already know they're going to like this book, so I don't recommend much. If you pick a book off the stands and you're looking at it and it doesn't talk to you, it's not saying buy me, then who am I to push it on you? It's like, if the book isn't going to sell itself, I'm not going to sell it for the book, So, but so like I say, I'm not really a businessman. Most businessmen would try to push every book they had on you, but like I'm not like that. I'm a collector at heart. Like I say, I hardly think most of the books in this store, even though I know they're mine, I don't think of them as mine. They're the store's books, So I keep my personal collecting away from store collecting. I very rarely. Another reason I've watched a lot of competitors go under is because they'll get a nice collection in and they take all the goodies home for themselves. Well, all the money you were going to make profit in the store,
you've just lost it.
You just lost it because you took it home. Yeah, your collection looks nicer, but unfortunately your store's bankrupt and you're out of business in 6 months because you took all the goodies you could have made money on, and you took them home with you. So, and then you're squawking because the store doesn't make any money. Well, whose fault is that? So
you've had a lot of famous artists and writers through the store through the years.
I've had a few.
Some no longer living.
Yeah, not as many as I would have liked over the years.
Right.
But one thing I don't do much is advertise, as you guys know. Never been much into that. That radio ad I heard in 1970, that basically was it. And I always found advertising to be rather a waste of money. I always had an ad in the old price guides, the old Overstreet price guides.
And in the phone book?
Well, usual phone book. Yeah, you
right.
get your... But by and large, advertising was always hard because comics were for a long time basically a very select hobby. I mean, it was a very tiny niche, and word of mouth for those kind of niche type things work much better. Word of mouth is about as good as you can get, and so that's another reason you should be nice to people who walk in. because they'll spread the word that your store is cool and blah blah blah. So. And as you guys know, the internet and the digital world escapes me. So
I was about to just say you've done this business.
I know advertising on there, I guess, is a lot easier or something, or you blow your own horn on your Facebook page or whatever. But I have no interest in any of that either. People will say all the time, "Well, you could get all these books you have all these books. You can sell these in a heartbeat online." I said, "Yeah, but I already have a job, I'm working 8 hours in here. I'm not going to go home and do emails and for another 6 hours until 2 in the morning. No, in my old age, sitting in the recliner is more important than selling Captain America at midnight to somebody in Europe. Okay, so
going back to Dow's questions, who have been some of the famous cats that you've enjoyed coming through the door?
I don't know. Archie Goodwin was one of my favorites. He was a Tulsa guy anyway, and he had family here. Of course, he graduated high school here, and
went to Rogers.
He did. He was a Rogers grad, and he would always stop in the store whenever he was in town, which wasn't very often. But he was always nice enough to come in, and he would always bring something. He would always bring me some of his own artwork or acetate from a current book, so he was always nice in that manner. Archie was really a nice guy. I always think of the Jim Warren story of Creepy and Eerie and Vampirilla fame. Jim Warren used to say that the only two people in the comic industry he ever met that weren't crazy was Al Williamson and Archie Goodwin. And all the rest of them are insane. And
Warren himself.
Including himself, probably. But so Archie was really a nice guy, and it was sad. He seemed to, he just died too early, really. And so he's probably the biggest Hall of Fame guy who used to come in here.
I know Bill Willingham, I think.
Bill Willingham came in here one day. Twice. He was on his way. He lives in Texas. I think he still does. Mm-hmm. He was on his way to Chicago, where Comico had their offices at the time. He was having a little dispute with who the ownership of the Elementals book, if you old guys remember the Elementals book out there. And I've never known anybody, artist or writer or anybody, to be, he said he was 11, almost 12 issues ahead on that series. I'm not sure how many guys worked that far ahead in the comic industry, but he had basically 11 issues ready to go. But he hasn't been sending them in because over a dispute over ownership of the Elementals, and I think the real thing was he wasn't getting paid. Mm-hmm. So a lot of horror stories about that in the publishing world. One of the sleaziest businesses on earth out there, radio fans, I can tell you, is the publishing business. Ask any artist or writer who ever worked for a publisher, have they ever been stiffed on a project, and you're going to hear volumes from them I got stiffed, or I did 18 pages of this and I never got paid. You're going to hear that all day long. But so I think he wasn't getting paid, and anyway, he stopped in the store. He was on his way to Chicago. They wouldn't answer the phone. One of the reasons he had to go visit in person is because they weren't answering his calls. So I never did hear that ended up. I do know that he found out, like a lot of young talent, you sign a contract with a publisher, you better read the fine details, because as it turned out, Comico owned the rights to the Elementals. So somewhere out there in Bill Willingham's basement, he's got 11 issues, wherever he left off, I forget which number it was, on the Elementals. They actually exist. I don't know if they'll ever see the light of day or not, but Comico kept Elementals going, but without Willingham, it died very quick death, and well deserved.
Well, Comico kind of died.
And Comico themselves died a death not long after. Yes, although they stayed in existence actually quite a while. They didn't publish anything for a long time. That actually isn't uncommon. Publishers, they still exist sort of on paper, but they're not actually publishing. They're not actively publishing. They own the rights, they have creator rights, they own things, they own characters and things, but they're not currently publishing. So that's not unusual.
you brought up trying to be above board with people and dealing with books.
Yeah.
That would extend to the stickers on the books, because you'll say water damage.
Yeah.
But now, I'm going to get real quick on something.
Okay, sure.
But the one that gets me and the one that makes me laugh is sometimes you'll say bitten by or chewed by a mutant rat or something.
Yeah.
Clawed by puma.
Yeah, I'll do that. Because I always appreciate, like I say, I'm a collector. So when I get home and I bought a book and I get it home and I find out the center page is missing or somebody cut a coupon out, it pisses me off. So I try to let people know. Now, I can't look at every single book, and some things have escaped me. But most people know, you bring it to me. If there's something wrong with the book, no problem. Here's your money, no problem. Go buy something and get something else. But, so yeah, I try to mark if something's water damaged or if it's a tear on the back. Because a lot of times people with backing boards on the back of the book, you can't see the back cover of the book. I try to tell anybody, if you're buying a book that's over, say, $20, you should pull it out and look at it. Straight through, cover to cover. Check the center page, check the staples, look for coupons, check for writing, water damage, everything right there before you buy it. Now, how many people do that? Probably not many, but you should. So if I see some problem with a book, I usually mark it on the sticker. But occasionally, I must be bored in here or something because I will write what I think are cute things on the thing, and I started doing that because it had a book. It was an Avengers book, and it had a weird tear on it that looked like fangs or something had crawled across. It was kind of parallel scratches on the book, and so I wrote something like "gnawed by mutant rats" or something on the cover. And this kid, I don't know, it was like a year later, and the kid's digging through the stacks, and he pulls that book out, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, was this book really bitten by a rat?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I got to buy that. I got to get that book." And so from now on, I'll put little stuff like that. Or in fact, one the other day was a Swamp Thing of some sort, and it had some nasty stain on the back cover. So I put swamp juice on the back cover or something on the sticker. So I'll do things like that. Yeah,
or if it's written on or colored with extra art.
Or signed by Billy Bob. Because every kid on Earth put his name on the cover of old comics. Because usually in the old days, people shared comics. Your brother read them, your sister read them, you give them to your neighbor, you'd swap books, blah, blah, blah. But you might want them back, so you put your name on them. You write your name on the top of the book. And so yeah, I'll usually, do things like autographed by Billy Bob or something, so.
So what are some of your other favorite stories that have either walked through the store or store employees or...
Well, I don't know.
Why you got to go store employees for?
Yeah. Talk about you guys.
You've worked here too.
Yeah. Well, Tanner was good because he was long hair. He was kind of an old hippie dude, and he would always urge me to do a commercial on TV or something, but he'd want to be in it, of course. So what he really wanted me to do was get him on TV. So he could, in his slacker stoner voice, tell me that you guys should go to the Comic Empire, man, and buy some comics, dude. So I thought, great, okay, yeah, that's what I need is Tanner on there advertising for my store. Thanks, but no, colorful customers. There's Skateboard Charlie. You can't forget Skateboard Charlie, and. He gets around this town, so with his unique pricing strategy, one of the all-time greats, he actually put a book on consignment. I do consignment books, and he brought something in. It was a toy or something, and I said, "Charlie, you need to put a sticker on that so I know what you want." So he gave me a sticker, and then he showed me the book, and it said. $5.99 or $9.99, your choice. And I was like, what? Yeah, $5.99 or $9.99, your choice. So I said, well, Charlie, don't you think most people would pay $4.99? Well, not necessarily. Like, oh, Okay. Well, maybe if you found that 1 in 1,000 who might pay $9.99, maybe Helen Keller would come in, and maybe she might pay $9.99. So,
yeah.
The next week I actually sold the book. Guess what? The guy chose $4.99. I know that's shocking, but the guy chose $4.99. So Charlie came in and he saw that he sold it. He was like, "Oh, I sold it. What did I get?" I said, "Charlie, you got $4.99." He was like, "Oh," like he was really disappointed. So, you get unique customers. You get some. It's like you open your door for retail. Anybody can walk in off the street. Well, they do. Okay. Mm-hmm. Anybody from people who can hardly write their name in the dirt with a stick to 3-piece suit PhDs. Okay, I've had them all in here. So, and that's the thing. Every day is a little different. You never know what you might see or run into, or what somebody might bring in.
You had a story about a little kid coming in and wanted to look at your amazing
Oh,
Spider-Man.
yeah. Well, that's when I learned not to ever take anything for granted in here. This kid came in one day. I'd never seen him before. Do you have an Amazing Spider-Man #1? And you get all kinds of questions like, people are like, "Do you have the first Superman?" I'm like, no. But this kid, and I actually happened to have an Amazing Spider-Man at the time.
This was way back.
This was back in the 80s. And the book was not in the best condition. It was okay. It was solid, probably a solid 2.5 or 3, maybe, something like that. Anyway, so I said, I'll give the kid a thrill and show it to him. And because the book at the time was about $1,000. So I thought, kid's going to pull $1,000 out of his pocket, right? So I showed it to him because I thought, this kid may never see this book ever in his lifetime. So I showed it to him, and he was like, "Great, I'll take it." I'm like, "It's $1,000." He was like, "Oh, okay, wait a minute." So he went outside and brought his mom in. His mom got out of the car and came in, and she plunked down 10 $100 bills right there. Bam. I was like, okay. She didn't even say a word. She never said a word. Kid was happy, and they left. So from that point on, I never, hey, I don't know. Some millionaire 8-year-old might walk in here one day and want to buy the entire store. So I learned my lesson right there, not to take anybody who walks in here for granted, because you never know. One of my biggest customers owns half of this state. Is a comic book collector. Well, if you saw him on the street, you'd think he was a bum. He's got holes in his jeans. He's got a ponytail down to his crack. And he looks like he hadn't had a shower in a week. But he's one of the wealthiest men in the state. So you can't judge people by what they look like or what they're asking for. And that's another thing, I get people who collect Archies. I get, like I say, I had to ruin all the Archies back in our flood days. But, so you don't really know what people collect, and the hobby is huge, as anybody out there knows. It even amazes me, and I do this every day, pretty much since the 60s, is how many books there actually are, how many titles and publishers and old comics, new comics, whatever. And it still amazes me if somebody will bring a collection in, and I'll see a book, and I'm like, I've never seen this book before. So it is a really huge hobby, so you never know what people collect, and so that's it. Just treat everybody nice, and like I say, I don't know everything about the comic world. I learn something new all the time. So so it's a big hobby, and so I try to pass knowledge on to people if I can help it, if I can, and
I've always said. I mean, you picked up like an 83, 84, you say.
Yeah, I bought the store in 1984.
I think I came in probably like a year after you've had it.
Yeah.
And you haven't got rid of it.
Yeah, I remember your mom used to.
She did.
I did. Your mom used to bring you up here. I remember that.
Didn't she dump him here?
No.
She, pretty much.
She tried to. I mean, it was funny to look at my. I try to remember my buying habits from back then to now.
Yeah.
And I bought crap a lot of crap back
He
then.
did, but you know,
But still, I mean, it's
that's why I think it helps to talk to old collectors.
Yeah.
because they can
No, and
tell
I
you
did. I
about
learned-
the period they're really familiar with. They can weed you around most of the comics that really you shouldn't be paying attention
Right.
to. They're
I'm
not
still
that
buying
good.
crap.
you are.
Yeah.
We keep telling you that.
I
I actually did, because you and Mike Roberts, the great Mike
Yes,
Roberts, you know,
yes.
I learned a lot. I learned about Jack Kirby a lot from him
yeah.
and everything, and so and
But
to
but
appreciate
you were
the art.
learning from the old guys.
I was right, yeah,
Yeah.
and him and Chuck.
Oh yeah.
Chuck, I learned a lot from Chuck. I can't remember Chuck's last name.
I don't remember his last name either.
You've seen a lot of customers actually
I have.
come and go.
In
Yeah.
fact, I saw one the other day. I did not remember. He came in and he told me that he was in the city to visit a relative or something. He doesn't live here anymore. He came in, and I did not recognize him, but it was in the 70s, so it was a long time ago. And he said, I'm glad to see you guys are still here. I get that a lot. Some of my old customers will come in and they're usually shocked that we're actually still here. And he said, I want to thank you. I was like, thank me? Why? He said, you directed my life down to the path I took. He said, I came in here as a kid and I bought, I think he said Starlogs. He would buy Starlog magazine in here. And he said it got him interested in making movies, and he did that for a while. And it got him into any new people in the gaming business. It got him into doing that and telling stories, and just the creative energy that you get with comics and artwork. And he was like, I said, if I'd have never come in here, he said, I probably would be who knows what. I'd be working in a grocery store, or I'd be an electrician or something. He said, so that kind of made me feel it's like I never think about that. You know, somebody running a comic store can influence a life and their direction they go. I really never. I don't think about that much, but because I just try to provide good comics at good prices, and because, like I say, I'm a collector myself, so I always appreciate when the help is friendly and they're knowledgeable. That's another thing. I get a lot of kids who always want to work in here. Problem is they don't know anything about comics. They think they're going to get to sit around and read comics all day for work. Well, sorry, that's not going to happen.
You don't get to do that.
You don't get to do that.
I've seen some of those employees. They kind of do that.
Yeah, do they do that? Well,
On Sundays?
I
What,
wonder
on Sunday?
who that could be. Yeah. So, sorry, Kenny.
No, I remember I used to work on Tuesdays. I would come in and I would do everything that needed to be done when I came in.
Yeah, that's the way Tanner used to do
pull
it.
the stuff, get everything done, and that would take about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And so I was just like,
But then the rest of the time,
I'm
you
like,
can sit around and read books.
reading books, yeah.
Or help people when
Yeah,
they come in
exactly,
and answer
yeah.
the phone and all
And actually,
that usual stuff.
Charles told me that because he was, get everything done.
Yeah, Tanner would do it that way too. He would come in after school, and boom, first thing he did was grab the list, whatever books we needed to pull. Boom, he'd pull all the books. I mean, and within 30, 45 minutes, he'd be done with that day's books, and then he'd sit around and read them most of the time. But he had everything done, so good for him.
Pulling the book, so you find, you may have to pull, Harley Quinn 14. Well, you're pulling through that. Then you find these other old books, and you're like, oh, wow, okay. And you kind of stop and you kind of look at these,
Well,
and so,
I think everybody does that. If they have a big collection and you start filing your books away,
I'm talking about pulling the books here.
yeah, but people can do that here
yeah.
too. Employees have done that too, where you're really looking for this book, but then you see this, you're like, oh wow, and you start looking. 2 hours later, you haven't pulled any books. You're still like, oh my gosh, this series is awesome. I have to pick these up.
Yeah.
I did that last week. I was going through my books and I was trying to get some stuff done, and I stopped and found something to read, and next thing I know, it was late at night, and I had to look at it.
I know, and I do that too. When I dig through my old collections, I'm like, wow, I forgot I even had that book. I'm like, wow. Or I find book, and I'm like, well, I can't remember why I have this in my collection. There must be something inside this book, some reason I've got it. So I'll look, and it's some artist I liked or something, and that's the reason I bought it. Some anthology book that he did the last story in there or something. So.
You have something, Jimmy?
With decades of knowledge as a retailer.
Yeah.
We're voting you King President of DC and Marvel. What are you doing? What's your step?
Wow.
What are you doing?
I don't know. You know, I can badmouth creators as much as anybody, but I don't really mean to, because creation is hard. You know, creation is really hard. It's easy to destroy. It is hard to create.
It's not rocket science.
Well, sometimes I think they make it that way.
Yes.
But
Comedy is.
Comedy is just tragedy that's
keep
happening
telling
to somebody
you
else.
not to quit your day job for
As
that.
W.C. Fields used to say. Anyway, I don't know what I would do. You're right. That's a tough question. Marvel's sort of on the right track. Marvel, like I say, Marvels have really sort of crippled the industry in the last 4 years or so. But they're trying to get their old characters back, and they're trying to win their customers back. That may take some time. It's hard when you have long-time established characters that people love. It's hard to tinker with iconic characters, as Marvel has found out. You can't just get rid of Bruce Banner and have some new kid be Hulk.
Awesome.
It just yeah. I used to say that might be the most misnamed comic book in the history of comics. Totally awesome Hulk. No offense to Amadeus Cho fans out there, but you know what? Bruce Banner is Hulk. And that's why I think Marvel's finally figured out, by getting new blood in there at the top, the new Zdarsky?
CB
Cebulski.
Cebulski.
Yeah.
Yes. At least he's a comic guy. Now, one thing I don't know, and Marvel and DC keep this pretty close to the vest, is their digital numbers. I hear rumors sometimes they're very poor. Sometimes I hear that they're awesome. I don't really know. I don't have as many connections as I used to in the old days. I'm an old guy, and most of them are gone. So I don't really know their digital numbers. So I don't know if digital numbers are increasing for Marvel and DC. More kids, younger people are reading them digitally. I suspect over time that will be the case.
Uh-huh.
And Marvel made no bones about it a few years ago about going all digital as soon as they could, and it wouldn't shock me if they did. Now, they're not going to get much help from guys like me or retailers like Diamond, because you're going to put us out of business, and so we're not going to help you do that a whole lot. I actually got a call from DC when they did the new 52. They had a special midnight launch of the Justice League #1, and they were going to release the first digital book, too, their digital book of Justice League, at midnight. Well, by 10 p.m., somebody had already hacked it, and it was already online for free. And DC was told about this before the midnight release. Mm-hmm. It's like, welcome to the digital world, DC. Yep. Some 16-year-old Sharpie's already taking you to the cleaners.
Hey, they found your files.
And so the digital, and DC actually called me. You don't order any of our, for an extra $1, you could get the digital download code for the new 52 books. And I didn't order any of those. For one reason, I didn't have anybody who wanted them. I mean, $3.99's expensive enough for a comic. Who's going to pay $4.99? Mm-hmm. Well, so for a digital download code, they didn't really want? No. So they didn't. So I didn't order any. DC actually called me, and they asked me why. Why don't you order any of my digital books? You've been around a long time. I said, well, because I'm not going to help you sell digital books, am I? And I'm not going to help you slit my own throat. And I told them flat out, for once, the retailers and the distributors will be on the same side, so you're going to have to fight Diamond as well. And never heard from DC again. Sorry to say, but at least I told them the truth.
They don't like your honesty.
They don't. The truth can hurt, yes. The truth is a cruel mistress for most of us. I know. I've talked to her several times in my life.
Important question here.
Yeah, important, okay.
If you were a comic character, which one would you be and why?
Oh, wow. Well, my favorite growing up was always Spidey, is for my mainstream comics. I don't know any teenage boy that cannot relate to Peter Parker or Spider-Man.
And they did it really well. I mean,
and why would you be Spidey then?
Well, I don't know if I wanted to be Spidey. It's just that you could relate to Spidey. What I always loved about Spider-Man was he had relatable problems. He was always late with his homework, and his boss hated him, and he girlfriend trouble. And I mean, what teenage boy can't relate to all of that? That's what made it so good and so relatable. But I don't know. I never really thought about that. Man, having any kind of superpower would be pretty awesome, really. But it'd probably just get me in trouble. You know, it's like having a real lightsaber. That'd be cool, right? Until you cut your own leg off, then it wouldn't be so cool, would it? You know.
Yeah, you see the destructive power.
You know, reality has a way of. I always said the coolest thing in comics are heroes who wear capes. Man, those look cool. Artists love drawing those capes flowing out. But try wearing one of those in real life, and you'll catch them on every door jam and windowsill and car door, and you'd kill yourself wearing a cape in the real world. So
was it Incredibles that mentioned the first Incredibles that mentioned about how bad capes are?
Yeah,
Actually,
capes aren't
Captain
good.
America when he was the Nomad.
Yeah, there you go.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, he did. You're right.
Yeah.
Years ago.
You say you're not ready to retire yet, but what do you see the shop? You know,
Well, I've always kept the shop just like it is. Some guy who'd never been here before came in about a year ago, and he's like, "Wow, this is like a real 1970s comic shop." And I was like, "Well, that's pretty much what it is." And we haven't changed any, and I don't plan to change at all. Something I like about it is it's sort of timeless. You know, you come in here and it's like almost stepping
lose
back
time.
in time, really. I mean, it is a 70s comic shop, and so you probably don't get many shops that have this feel to them. But
well, until what, 10 years ago, you didn't do credit cards?
no, that would have been
12 years
probably
ago?
early 2000s.
That's
Yeah,
it.
so it's
I've
been
lost
about
time.
15 years or so. But yeah, you guys know I'm digitally challenged. So
I mean, I can remember.
but it, literally was getting to the point where, I mean, if you're going to sell some $200 or $400 book,
Right.
who's carrying that kind of money around?
Exactly.
Almost nobody. So yeah, that wasn't a real tough decision, and so to get credit card in here. So
Do you think about the future of Comic Empire as you are getting older?
well, one of the things is that here sometime in the next 10 plus less years, who knows, I'll probably have to. But it'll just depend. It'll probably be a lot like when Larry was trying to sell the store. He tried to find buyers. I mean, you get a lot of people who tell you they want to buy the store, but when it comes time to actually lay the money on the table, well, they tend to disappear, don't they? So when it comes time to the nitty-gritty, they're nowhere to be found. So how many people are really serious about buying the store? I don't know. I'll get 15 people that tell me they'd love to buy it, but what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to buy it? Probably not. So I don't know. I may have the same problem Larry did, where you try for a year to find a buyer to keep it running. I would love to see the store keep going. I know Larry, on the rare occasions when he'd come back from California, he himself was always shocked when the store was still here. But I would like to think that deep down he always appreciated that I kept it going. Something he'd started is still running. And I could see doing that. But I will also have no qualms. I've said this from the first day I had the store, that I tell you the truth, I thought it'd be gone in 6 months anyway. And if I did, I'd sell off, sell everything for $1 and leave and lock the door and leave and never look back. So, and I'm sort of still that way. If nobody really wants to buy the store, I'd hate to see it close. But I also realize that the next owner is going to have to join the digital revolution at some point. I mean, somebody would have to modernize the store and get up online, start selling books online, have a website, have people where they can order books over the internet and all of that stuff, which I have no interest in. And so I don't know. Like I say, I haven't really given it much thought, but whatever I have to do, that's probably what I'll do. But right now, knock on wood, I'm not gonna worry too much about it. But yeah, I would like to see it go on. I mean, I'd love to see it sell it to some young kid. My biggest worry is the digital world itself. Like I say, Marvel makes no bones about going all digital as soon as they can, and I'm sure DC would do the same, and most of these publishers would. You eliminate lots of cost, a lot of overhead for them. They would pay a writer and artist. Everything else would be pure profit for them. So Now, how do you make people pay $3.99 for a digital comic? I'm not sure.
Nice.
The comic business is kind of having the same trouble the music business had years ago. You know, why should I pay $18 for a CD that has one good song on it? You know what? I'll just rip it off from somebody who's posted it online, and I won't pay him a penny. And the music business had that trouble for a while, and the comic business is having that too. Trying to get the reason Marvel hasn't gone all digital is because they can't figure out how to make everybody pay $3.99 for and not share it with all their buddies.
Right.
So.
Recently, eBay has gotten in with that with Comicology and are offering books at $3.99. Buy it now. But, yeah. I don't see. I like to know their sales on that myself.
Most collectors I talk to, like I say, collectors tend to be older, and older guys, even some of the young guys you talk to, they love actually holding the book in their hands. Digital comics, there's nothing wrong with them. I've looked at people's iPads and read digital comics, and they're fine.
Well,
they're not the same. They don't have the same feel that holding the same visceral feel that a
don't seem to have the value of $3.99.
No,
no.
Even the books that are actually published don't have $3.99 value to them.
No, and I worry too about the hobby itself. If everything went digital, what would happen to collecting? I mean, every book would always be mint. What are you going to get some artist to sign your iPad or what? I mean, I don't understand how the conventions and the whole comic experience would actually survive if everything went all digital. So now I don't worry too much about me. Like I say, I'm an old guy. If everything went digital tomorrow, there would still be enough collectors looking for old books,
right,
that you could survive for another 10 or 15, 20 years probably. But
definitely.
After that, and everything's all digital all the time, everybody in kindergarten today, it wouldn't shock me if most of those kids never own a book. I mean, everything they ever do will be on a machine.
A lot of kids don't even know what a computer is now.
Yeah,
because they're
tablets.
using tablets now.
Yeah.
Computer, what is that?
So, yeah, it's so the business will change, but I don't know if it'll be for the good. But I don't worry about it. Now, if I was 20 years old getting into this business, I'd probably be a little spooked. But but I don't worry about it for me anymore. I quit worrying about the digital world a long time ago, as you guys know.
And you used to have a. Kind of need to wrap it up. But you used to have a.
Sure.
The rotary phone. I'm trying to think of what's that called.
I've still got it back there. I should hook it up. It fit right in with this the decor in here.
Yes.
Well, we got any last questions, Jimmy?
It's not really store related, and I don't mean to keep you longer than you want to be. But was it Candyland the first time you laid your hands on an Overstreet, or not really?
It was interesting. Like I say, I collected for years, and it didn't really worry about value of books. I collect them because I liked enjoying them. And most people who grew up in the 60s, and the first price guide, I believe, came out in 1971. And it's a pretty rare collected item itself, the first price guide. It's very crude. It looks like it was done in somebody's garage. It's a real low-budget affair. But the thing I remember about it is the first time I saw it, a guy was looking at one, and he looked up Fantastic Four #1. And I believe Fantastic Four #1 was listed at mint copy was $100 in 1971, and he was fuming, man. He was like, "There's no way on God's earth anybody will pay $100 for that book. Oh my God, you know." And like I say, there are collectors who still believe price guides been bad for comics. I don't know if I'm in that camp, but.
You've always said that it's a guide.
It is a guide. It's not the Bible. It's not the law. It's just a guide. And like any collectible, it's whatever two people can agree on for the price. That's so. Somebody might get it for $100. Somebody might get it for $30. Somebody might pay $130 for it. Way over guide. So it just depends. CGC is doing that sort of thing right now, where $100 books sell for $800 because it's a 9.4. Well, okay.
Yeah, I know you talked about the digital. You kind of feel the same way a bit about the graded books.
I have a love-hate thing with CGC. Yeah, mostly hate, but
because it goes back to that you can't
open
the book.
What are books for? Well, to be read and enjoyed. Right. Well, it's a commodity, isn't it? That's what I'm saying. If you just want to collect for value, or and I understand why people do, because comic prices have been skyrocketing. So any smart investor who sees a market that's climbing and realizes he can cash in at the ground floor and let it ride up and sell a book. You buy $100 book, you slab it for $50, and you sell it for $1,000. Well, you just made a lot of money, didn't you? So greed has fueled it for a long time, and which isn't always good in markets, but that's how they work. And that's my problem. A nice $100 book, okay, is particularly nice. I'll give you $125, but I'm not going to give you $800, am I? I'm not. But there are plenty of people who will, and good for them. And good for this. It's good for the seller for sure. And I'm not sure. So it's so good for the buyer. He seems to think it is, but. So, yeah, graded books I have trouble with. The only advantage I see is when you sell to somebody coast to coast through the mail. Used to be you just have to take somebody's word for it, and now at least you have, he says it's an 8.0. Well, it might be a 7.5. It might be an 8.5, but it's probably in and around that. It's not going to be a 3, is it? So I understand the need for it. That's the only love part I see but most of it's hate because it's greed fueled, and it's basically a commodity. It's a book you can't read anymore. I call them coffins because they're buried and they're gone forever, aren't they? So unless you decide to pop the seal, and I've recommended that to a few people, and oh my God, the apoplexy on their face, they about have a heart attack if you even remotely think about popping a seal in a CGC. Oh my God! So most of the collectors in the area know I don't deal in CGC. And nor do I have any desire to. But there are plenty of people who will, and there are plenty of people with a lot of money who seem to want to pay 10 times what a book's worth. Well, it's their money. This is America. You can do what you like. So I don't deal in CGC, but I really don't fault dealers who do. But I always found it kind of a rip-off myself personally. And the history of the store, I hope we go another 42 years.
Yeah. We appreciate you coming in and talking about that.
Yeah, that would make me 103.
Well,
I'll be rolling around in my wheelchair here, I'm sure.
His little hover scooter.
Yeah, it might be. I might have one by then. Unless it runs on a computer, and then I won't be able to do that.
So, thanks, Mike, for stepping in.
Sure.
And thanks, Jimmy, for coming by.
Thank y'all.
Yeah. And let us know
we
if you have any questions for Mike. We might have a round 2. So,
if you
have any questions, leave them down there
send them to Dal19.
And we might just have a round 2 with Mike.
Yeah.
A round 3, really, I guess.
Yeah, it will be a round 3.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Appreciate you guys listening to the podcast as well, and we'll talk to you later. This is Terry.
It's Dal.
Jimmy.
And Mike, deep from the basement.
Thanks a lot.